Now that we have completed the line-by-line explanation of the poem A Considerable Speck by Robert Frost, we will be solving the question answers from this poem. So without much delay, let us quickly have a look at the first question. Now we will have a look at the extract. A speck that would have been beneath my sight, from there to, with inclinations it could call its own. Now the first part of the question. When did the speaker notice a speck? Why did he feel that it would have been beneath his sight? So like I tell you, whenever you are answering the first part of any question, you must mention the name of the text and the name of the writer, the poet or the dramatist, as the case may be. And if a part question has separate halves, you have to answer each half in separate paragraphs. So the first part of the question, see what is it asking? When did the speaker notice a speck? So the quoted lines have been taken from the poem A Considerable Speck by Robert Frost. The speaker noticed a speck when he was busy writing something on a paper sheet so white. So you see over here, when you are mentioning the name of the poem, you have to write the name within single quotes. But see, when I have used words and phrases from the text itself, then I have used double quotes. Now the second half of the first part. So we will write from a fresh paragraph. So what does the question say? Why did he feel that it would have been beneath his sight? So the answer is, the speaker felt that the speck was so tiny that it would have been beneath his sight had it been on any other surface but the white sheet of paper. Now the second part. Why did the speaker idly poise his pen in the air? So the answer to this is, the speaker aimlessly poised his pen in the air when he saw a speck on his sheet so white. He desired to stop it as it moved across the sheet with a blot of ink. Poised his pen. Poised means he balanced his pen. Now the third part. What was strange about it that attracted the speaker's attention? What was the speck in reality? So what was strange about it? The movement of the speck on the sheet with emotions it could call its own drew the speaker's attention towards the strange dot. So one point is the inclinations, the emotions, and the second point is the movement of the speck that grabbed the speaker's attention. Now the second half, what was the speck in reality? In reality, the speck was a tiny living mite. Now the fourth part, explain the meaning of the last line of this extract. So whenever questions like this come, see, the extract will always be given to you. So whenever you are answering questions like this, always mention the last line or whatever line they are referring to. So the answer, see how I have begun the answer. When the speaker says that the mite had inclinations it could call its own. So I am telling the examiner that this is the line or this is the phrase which I will be explaining. So after mentioning which phrase or which line you are going to describe, then you proceed with your answer. So, the speaker says that the mite had inclinations it could call its own. He means to tell the readers that the mite was a living creature with feelings and emotions. It had desires which belonged to it. What does inclination mean? Inclination means feelings, it means emotions. So this living mite, it had feelings and emotions that it could call its own. Now the fifth part, that is the last part of the first question. Describe briefly how does this extract justify the title of the poem. Answer. In the quoted extract, the speaker describes an incident where a living mite set off across a paper sheet on which he was writing. The white sheet made the speck noteworthy and drew the speaker's attention towards its considerable and appreciable inclinations. Though the speaker mistook it as a dust speck, he soon realized that it was unmistakably a living mite worth taking into account. Thus, it justifies the title. So you see, in this answer, we have used terms like considerable, appreciable, then worth taking into account. All these are synonyms. So you have to prove that this justifies the title. So you have to set an answer where every point is covered. And you cannot repeat the same term, considerable, all the time. So you must know a few synonyms to enhance your answer. Now question number 2. Let us have a look at the extract. It paused as with suspicion of my pen. From there to with loathing, for again it turned to fly. So the first part. What is referred to? It that paused with suspicion. And why did it do so? So like I told you, you have to name the poet and the poem first. So the answer is, the quoted lines have been taken from the poem A Considerable Speck by Robert Frost. The living mite that moved across a paper sheet so white is referred to as it, which paused with suspicion. And why did it do so? When the speaker spotted the moving speck, he wanted to stop it with a blot of ink. The speck, which turned out to be a living mite, paused with suspicion due to the interruption of the speaker's pen. Now the second part of the second question. Why did it start racing wildly after a pause? Why was the manuscript not yet dry? So the first half first. Aware of its mortality, that is knowing that it would die, the living mite raced wildly after a pause to prolong its death that could have been advanced by the speaker's interruption with his pen. And why was the manuscript not yet dry? The manuscript was not yet dry because the speaker had recently written something on it. The paper sheet was wet with ink. Now the third part. What did it drink or smell with loathing? Loathing means dislike, disgust, intolerance. And why? What did it do after that? So the answer is the tiny living mite drank or smelt the ink on the paper sheet with loathing. And why? Trying to prevent itself from the speaker, the mite moved uncontrollably on the wet side of the paper. Thereby, it either consumed or inhaled the intolerable ink. And what did it do after that? After that, the mite prepared itself to fly. The fourth part. Explain briefly the use of imagery in this extract. So when they tell you to explain an imagery from a particular extract, you have to deal only with that extract and not the poem as a whole. So what is the answer to this question? Robert Frost has beautifully woven a visual imagery in the quoted extract. So in the first line, we are telling the examiner that we know what sort of an imagery it is, whether it is a visual imagery or an auditory imagery. So this is a visual imagery. The halting of the mite with the stoppage of the speaker's pen and then moving hurriedly on the sheet is vivid and clear. The readers can literally visualize the mite preparing itself to fly after it drank or smelt the ink. Now the fifth part, the last part of this question. How does the speaker deal with the mite? What makes him do so? And how does the speaker's action justify the theme of the poem? The speaker dealt with the mite with smartness and intelligence. The willingness of the mite to live by preparing itself to fly after it either drank or smelt the ink made the speaker do so. Prioritizing the mite's display of mind, the speaker handled the situation with intelligence. And the last part, the theme of the poem revolves around the recognition of individual talents and merits, including the display of mind. Here the speaker's action justifies the theme as he appreciates the mite's quick-wittedness and its individual merits. So we have completed the second question. Now the third question. Plainly with an intelligence, I dealt. From there to whatever I accorded it to fate. Fate means destiny. So the first part. Which character trait of the mite is the speaker talking about in the first line of the extract, and why? So the answer is, the quoted lines have been taken from A Considerable Speck by Robert Frost. In the first line of the extract, the speaker is talking about the quick-witted, alert nature of the mite. And why is it so? The mite demonstrated its individual ability to use its intelligence when it either drank or smelt the ink. Its willingness to live and fly made the speaker appreciate it. Now the second part. Why did the speaker at first think that the mite did not have feet? What made him change his stance, that is, his thoughts, at the very next moment? So the answers here. At first the speaker thought that the mite did not have feet because of its microscopic size. For him, the mite was too tiny to have room for feet. Now the second half. The movement of the mite running across the sheet so wide to demonstrate its willingness to live made him change his stance the very next moment. Now the third part. What made the speaker realize that it didn't want to die? Answer. The way the mite ran with terror, delayed its movement at times with cunning crawls, and turned to fly to escape the loathing, made the speaker realize that it didn't want to die. So here you have 3 points. The running, the halting, the delaying, and the turning to fly. Now the fourth part. What did it do in the middle of the sheet of paper and why? So the answer to the fourth part is, in the middle of the paper sheet so white, the mite crouched down. It cowered down to hopelessly put up with whatever fate the speaker granted to it. It shrank to surrender its destiny. So see, I have quoted words from the text. I have quoted cover down. But even then, in a short sentence, that is, it shrink to surrender, I have told the examiner that I know the meaning of the phrase that I have quoted. Cover down means to crouch, to shrink. So I have used synonyms of that phrase to make it clear to the examiner that I know what I have written. Now the last part of the third question. Explain the attitude of the speaker towards the mite in the extract. Answer. In the extract, the speaker shows his understanding and sensitive nature towards the considerable speck. He not only appreciates the running, faltering, and cunning movements of the mite, but also understands the inclinations of the mite that made it hesitant to die. Despite knowing the poor mite's submission in the end, the speaker depicts his sensitive nature by recognizing its individualism. Now the fourth question. I have none of the tender than thou. From there to I let it lie there till I hope it slept. So the first half. Which trait is the speaker referring to which he says he does not have? What was the result of lacking this trait? So the answer will be, the quoted lines have been taken from Robert Frost's poem, A Considerable Speck. According to the speaker, he lacked the indiscriminate collectivistic regimenting love. As a result of lacking this trait, the speaker appreciated people according to their display of mind. He recognized individualism and prioritized abilities. Now the second part. Now this question is the most important question of this poem because the theme of the poem lies in this extract. So the second part. Explain collectivistic regimenting love. This is the most important question. Answer. The speaker uses the phrase collectivistic regimenting love to satirize the indiscriminate combined love universally accepted by the modern world. The controlled pattern of love that dismisses individual merit and shares similar ideologies is highlighted in the quoted phrase. So see, in the answer, I have explained each and every term. What does collectivistic mean? What does regimenting mean? Collectivistic refers to combined, and regimenting is like a controlled pattern of love. So you have to explain each and every word when questions like these come. Now the third part. To whom did the speaker refer to as poor microscopic item? Why? What does it suggest about the speaker? So the first half first. The speaker referred to the considerable mite as poor microscopic item. And why did he do so? He called it poor because of its helpless condition and referred to it as microscopic to denote its too tiny size. Now, what does it suggest about the speaker? It suggests that the speaker was a keen observer and a sensitive person who could emotionally connect with the mite's inclinations. Instead of acting like a tyrant, a dictator, he acknowledged the poor mite's individualism. Now the fourth part. Why did the speaker let it lie there? Do you think the speaker was right in doing so? Give reasons. So the answer will be, the speaker let the mite lie there because he was impressed with the mite's display of mind and its willingness to live. He knew the mite was harmless and had no evil intentions. Do you think the speaker was right in doing so? Yes. I think the speaker was right in doing so. Now you have to give reasons. The mite was innocent and had tried all possible measures to prolong its death. The identification of its individual abilities by the speaker led him to hope for a right decision. The last part of the question. Explain how does this extract reflect the theme of the poem? Answer. The poem revolves around the theme collectivism versus individualism. The theme is best highlighted in this extract as the speaker claims that the modern world is controlled by collectivistic regimenting love, which he lacks. Moreover, the theme how small things bring great differences is reflected when the speaker, who could have acted like a tyrant, hopes it slept. Now the last question from this poem. Now the extract first. I have a mind myself and recognize from there to the end of the poem. On any sheet, the least display of mind. The first part. What does the speaker want to convey by saying that he has a mind? What characteristic trait of the speaker is conveyed by this assertion, by this declaration? So the answer. The quoted lines have been taken from the poem A Considerable Speck by Robert Frost. The speaker refers to his own mental capability to reason and appreciate by saying that he has a mind. And what characteristic trait do you get from here? By this assertion, The smartness, intelligence, and self-awareness of the speaker is conveyed. The second part. Where does the speaker find the mind? In which guise does he find it? How does he recognize it? So the speaker found the mind on the paper sheet so white where he was writing. In which guise does he find it? He found it in guise means disguise, of a considerable mite. And how does he recognize it? He recognized it by its movements set off across the manuscript and its inclinations portraying its display of mind. The third part. How does the speaker reward it for displaying its mind? Why does the speaker not punish it for trespassing his sheet of paper? So the answer is, when the poor mite surrendered its fate, its destiny to the speaker rewarded it by choosing to save its life, allowing it to sleep. And why does the speaker not punish it? Impressed by the mite's display of mind and prioritizing individualism, the speaker did not punish it for trespassing his white sheet of paper. The fourth part. What is the reason for the speaker's feeling of gladness? Give the symbolic meaning of the line. On any sheet, the least display of mind. So the first half. The presence of the intelligent, considerable mite on the manuscript was the reason for the speaker's gladness. Now we have to explain the symbolic meaning of the given phrase. So the phrase display of mind refers to the show of alertness and intelligence. Here, the speaker symbolically tells about the minimal presentation of quick-wittedness that a person should imbibe in a void situation to present their individualism. Why void situation? Because this might see it was on a sheet that was white, so it is like a void situation. So in a situation like that, you have to show your display of mind, your intelligence, your wittiness. That is what the line symbolically means. And when you are showing your intelligence, what are you doing? You are portraying, you are displaying your individualism. You are presenting your individual abilities. Just like the fly, the mite. See, the mite wants to fly. It is showing its individual ability to the speaker in a situation like that. It is displaying its mind. It is forecasting its intelligence. Now the last part and the last question from this poem. What is the central theme of the poem? How is it an inconsequential mite used to justify the theme of the poem? So the answer, first you have to tell what is the central theme. The central theme of the poem is to show the importance of individualism over collectivism. It highlights how intelligence can build individual abilities and thereby make small things considerable, make small things worthy, noticeable, noteworthy. So it can add on to the worthiness because of your abilities being recognized. So how does the speaker use this might to justify the theme? An inconsequential might is used to justify the theme as the poor microscopic item is shown to have individual merits that it could call its own. The mite's display of mind and the way the speaker plainly dealt with it enhances the theme, because display of mind is the intelligence of the mite, and the speaker dealing with the mite plainly with intelligence again brings us back to individualism, to the importance of being intelligent and quick-witted. So with this, I come to an end of the discussion of all the possible questions that can come from this poem. If you have any doubt or any other question, you can write it in the comment section below. I will definitely answer. And now that we have completed, if you want to have a look at the line-by-line explanation of this poem, or you are willing to participate in a quiz from this poem, you can check out the description box. The links to those videos have been given below, and even a playlist of other texts and questions have been given in the description box. I also have a WhatsApp channel and a Telegram group where I share notes and practice grammar. So if you are willing to join them, you can happily join them and participate in all the contests and quizzes that I conduct. So till I come with my next video, happy studying English. Ta-ta!